Thank you. My name is Ishmael Sunga, the Chief Executive Officer of the Southern African Confederation of Agricultural Unions, SACAU in short. Farmer registration is fundamentally important, very important for farmers' organizations, because the farmers are an enormous capital base, potential capital base of farmers' organizations, because they derive their strength from their membership. So the more members, the more capital, the more powerful, the better for farmers' organizations. But to do that, you really need to know them. It's like a bank knowing their customers. So the farmers' organizations should know their members. It's important because knowing them is going to enable you to manage the membership. And ICT comes in very handy in terms of managing the membership, if particularly you have a large number of members. One of the key challenges faced by farmers' organizations is lacking the evidence to show that they actually are membership-based. That's one critical problem they're facing. Like if you're saying you're membership-based, show us the figures, show us the registers. So ICT will be able to answer that question if you have it in a digital format. The second point is that it is very difficult to connect with your members in terms of providing information and receiving information from them, inquiries from them. It is also very difficult and costly to connect with them on a very wide scale, touching all corners of the country, because most of the farmers tend to be residing in the in far-flung areas. So, and yet they are all holding the precious instrument, the cell phone, which can be a precious tool for knowing them as well as for managing the numbers. Also very important is that ICTs enable you to provide not only knowledge and services, to provide farmers with finance and for them to access other services like weather information. But it all starts with knowing who these guys are, where are they, and also which services are in demand. And services can be differentiated in many ways in terms of areas. It can be in terms of gender. It could be in terms of age. It could be in terms of other combinations. All that is enabled if you're using ICT platforms. So the importance of regularly collecting data without having to visit farmers is very critical in that sense. And also the importance of even geolocating where the farmers are. The scope in many respects is limitless. And I think that is the answer that farmers' organizations have been waiting for, to try and begin to build data sets that will enable them to target, to differentiate, to focus, and to do many things. But having data on its own is not enough. The ability to interpret it, to analyze it, is critical. But for data to have meaning beyond you, the owner of the data, it needs to be credible. It needs to be tested that it is actually the right data. So I think it's important for farmers' organizations to work with organizations that are actually specialists in the area of data management, so that we get the right quality of data and that people don't doubt the quality of the data. And once the data is doubted, and even if it's so large, it becomes completely useless. It's the same as not having it. I think the experiences could be at maybe two key levels. One is the farmers' organization itself, to be able to understand the potential value that they are sitting on. So discussions with our members is very critical to conscientize them, make them aware of what they are sitting on and how they can expand on that and how they can actually derive much more value, capitalize on that over time. And The moment they begin to see sense and the value in the data and in knowing their members from all different perspectives that I mentioned earlier on, it becomes possible for them to begin to plan and have partnerships with those that may have the capabilities of putting a data management plan together and moving forward. So that's the first level at the farmer organization. The second level is also at the practical level. The farmers themselves understanding that the data that they have, if used in a combined format with data from other farmers, can be enormous, can be very powerful for them to claim a better share of the market. And even demonstrating it to them that it's possible to do that is important, so that when you begin to request information from them, they understand that it is going into a collective pool from which value is going to be derived. But of course, they will need to see the benefits of that value. And that's one point. The second point really is the issue related to the collection of the data. Our experience is saying that that perhaps is the most expensive part. We severely underplayed the importance, the costs that are associated with collecting the data and the time that is required to collect that information. Our original model was that we'll simply, once we get their cell phone numbers, we'll simply get in touch with them and ask questions. What is your name? And give us this and give prizes. But no, that last mile requires someone to really go face to face and talk with them. So just having their cell phone numbers and able to communicate them does not go anywhere near picking up the information that you think is important. So deployment, developing strategies of actually going to the uptaking of data from farmers is important. You need to connect with them, to explain to them what it is and why, and begin to also get a sense of whether what they are saying is correct or not correct. You also need to understand which data is easily obtainable without having the risk of quality. For instance, we ended up saying, don't ask when were you born in terms of the month and day. Just say which year, perhaps which year and month were you born. But which year were you born is good enough to give you generalized parameters, particularly if the data is now consolidated. Otherwise, if you go much into detail, you begin to face the risk of getting data that is not so accurate. Similarly, even if you're talking about where exactly are you, maybe you have to use proxies, such as which is your nearest service center, because they may not be able to geolocate themselves and provide you with that information. And if you're going to be doing it by physically visiting every farmer, you're talking of hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions, that becomes very difficult. We thought one way of cracking some of the problems was working with service providers, but like cell phone companies, to see whether if we send out a message, they will then be able to geolocate where the answers are coming from. But that then gets entangled into information privacy issues that you need consent from farmers to do that. So getting that whole setup put together, I think there's a lot of, it's not as simple as we thought it would be. There's a lot of preparatory stuff that you need to do. Understanding not only the geographic terrain, but understanding all the regulatory issues, or the pre-registration issues. It's not just a question of training enumerators, as an example. And we made an assumption that because we're using young enumerators, therefore they had smartphones. But alas, it was an assumption that did not turn out to be very correct. So even those that have smartphones, most of the smartphones that are in the rural areas are hand-me-downs. It's easy uptaking farmer data using a smartphone. I think that's part of the problem. But then we don't have significant numbers of smartphones. Where they exist, we also have issues about their battery lives, because most of them are hand-me-downs, maybe 4th, 5th generation hand-me-downs. And we thought maybe we need to use, to go and hire smartphones to do that job. But the long short of it is a very, very important activity to register members. But it is a very, very expensive exercise, but worth the while, in the sense that once you have it and we're able to use it properly, it becomes really the highway to self-sustainability of farmers' organizations and to service provision, as well as access to information, access to knowledge. To me, I think it underscores the importance of public investment, because essentially you are establishing a digital network that enables third parties to connect with the general population, and for the general population to connect with third-party services or service providers. And it is not also, I think the data that one has, or that system, it should be, if it is an area that requires public sector investment, then the data should also generally in principle be open to other users, because you cannot use public resources then say it's my data. So you have to define some level of access by other stakeholders. Otherwise, everyone will be trying to reach the same person by going to interview them all the time. So if, in hindsight, our presentation about what we want to do is not only about knowing our members, but it is more about developing a digital ecosystem that enables people that want to reach farmers to reach them, and to have also access to first level information that they need about farmers, as well as to be able to define that any data that we think is beyond a certain level of aggregation or disaggregation, you now need to pay in order to make the system more sustainable. But all these things are not coming from sort of reading. They are coming from experiencing. Sometimes experience is the best teacher, but also being mindful of the fact that we don't want to pay school fees where others have paid school fees. I'm hoping that as we speak about briefly these experiences, that we are actually reducing the school fees that others who may want to do similar initiatives will avoid paying unnecessarily.